The storm didn't just hit hard, it drowned the entire neighborhood. The streets that once echoed with kids playing and neighbors chatting turned into rivers overnight. Cars were left stranded, alarms blaring before going silent under muddy water. People rushed to their rooftops, clutching whatever they could save. But in the middle of all that chaos, one house stood untouched. Mark Dalton had seen something like this coming long before anyone else did. While everyone trusted forecasts and HOA reassurances, he trusted his instincts. He spent months preparing, reinforcing, building, planning for the worst-case scenario. His home stood elevated, protected behind a massive concrete wall. Neighbors laughed at him, called it overkill. But as the water rose higher and higher, that wall became the only thing standing between disaster and safety. Weeks earlier, inside the HOA meeting room, tensions had already started boiling. Karen Whitmore stood at the front, holding a stack of complaints, her voice sharp and commanding. She made it clear that Mark's construction didn't fit the community guidelines. Other residents whispered, some agreeing, others unsure. Mark sat quietly, listening, watching, knowing this moment would come. To them, it was about rules. To him, it was about survival. That wall is illegal, Karen snapped, pointing directly at Mark like she had already won. The room fell silent instantly, the weight of her authority hanging in the air. A few board members nodded in agreement, eager to stay on her side. But Mark didn't react the way they expected. He didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He simply leaned back, calm and steady, because deep down, he knew something they didn't. While complaints were filed and warnings were issued, Mark kept building. Day after day, he worked under the sun and clouds, pouring concrete, reinforcing every inch. His golden retriever buddy stayed close, watching loyally as if he understood the importance of it all. Neighbors passed by shaking their heads, whispering jokes about his fortress. But Mark never stopped. Every layer of that wall was built with purpose, and with urgency. Then the storm came. Not slowly, not gently, but all at once. Dark clouds rolled in, swallowing the sky, winds bending trees until they almost snapped. Emergency alerts buzzed across phones. But by then it was already too late. Rain poured down harder than anyone expected. The calm neighborhood turned tense within minutes, and suddenly, fear replaced every ounce of doubt people once had. Water rushed through the streets like it had been waiting for this moment. Drains overflowed instantly, turning roads into rivers. Cars began floating, bumping into each other helplessly. Families ran, grabbing children, pets, anything they could carry. Sirens echoed in the distance, mixing with the sound of rushing water. And through it all, the HOA had no plan, no system, no preparation for something this big. Even then, Karen didn't stop. Standing in a small rescue boat, soaked and furious, she pointed straight at Mark's wall. Her voice cut through the chaos as she shouted accusations, blaming him like his preparation had somehow caused all of this. Officers nearby watched carefully, unsure how to respond. But Karen wasn't thinking about the flood, she was thinking about control, and she wasn't ready to let it go. Meanwhile, Mark sat above it all, calm and steady. He held a warm cup of coffee, watching the floodwaters swirl below him. Buddy sat beside him, alert but relaxed, trusting his owner completely. Behind them, the yard remained dry, untouched, almost like it existed in a different world. It wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It was preparation meeting reality. Even the police were stunned by what they were seeing. Officer Reyes stood on top of a partially submerged vehicle, scanning the area carefully. Houses were flooding one after another, but Mark's property stood strong and unaffected. It didn't make sense to most people there, but to Reyes, it told a very clear story someone had prepared, while everyone else had ignored the warning signs. Karen kept demanding action, her voice louder now, more desperate than before. She insisted the wall be torn down immediately, claiming it was causing water to redirect. But Officer Reyes didn't move. He watched the water closely, noticing the pressure building in other areas instead. This wasn't about one wall. Something bigger was happening, and it was about to get worse. The water level kept rising, pushing harder against everything in its path. Fences, small barriers, weak reinforcements, none of them were designed for this kind of force. Debris floated past at increasing speed, carried by currents that were growing stronger by the minute. You could almost feel the tension in the air, like something was about to snap. And then, cracks began to form. Small at first, barely noticeable, hidden beneath the pressure of the water, but they spread quickly. Weak structures started bending, groaning under the weight. What people thought would hold for now was starting to give way, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. Suddenly, a section collapsed. Water burst through with explosive force, sending debris flying in every direction. The calm flow turned violent instantly, like a dam had been released. The direction of the flood shifted in seconds, and everything that stood in its new path was about to be hit. That surge of water redirected straight into the HOA neighborhood. It slammed into homes, smashing through doors and windows without hesitation. Garages filled within moments, furniture began floating, and people screamed as they realized what was happening. This wasn't just flooding anymore, it was destruction. Karen's house was one of the first to be hit. Water rushed through her front door, climbing higher and higher within seconds. Furniture flipped over, Decorations washed away, everything she owned getting swallowed by muddy water. The home she fought so hard to control, it was completely out of her control now. She stood there frozen, water rising around her legs, unable to process what was happening. The same authority she used in meetings meant nothing here. Rules didn't matter, titles didn't matter. All that remained was reality, and it was overwhelming. From his wall, Mark watched with a serious expression. There was no satisfaction in his eyes, no sense of victory. This was exactly what he had tried to prevent, exactly what he had warned about, but no one had listened. And now, everyone was paying the price. Rescue efforts kicked into full motion. Officers moved quickly, pulling people into boats, shouting instructions, trying to maintain order in complete chaos. Families were separated, reunited, crying, panicking. The flood didn't give anyone time to think, it only forced them to react. From above, the difference was impossible to ignore. One side of the neighborhood was completely underwater, destroyed and chaotic. The other side, Mark's property, remained dry, stable, untouched. It wasn't luck, it was preparation. And now everyone could see it clearly. Karen was eventually helped into a rescue boat. She didn't argue this time. She didn't shout or point fingers. Her expression had changed completely. The confidence was gone, replaced by shock and quiet realization. For the first time, she understood. Officer Reyes looked back at the wall again, studying it carefully. Solid, unmoved, doing exactly what it was built to do. It wasn't causing the problem, it was preventing one. And that realization changed everything. Neighbors watched from boats, staring at Mark's home. Some looked frustrated, others ashamed, and a few simply quiet. They remembered the jokes, the complaints, the meetings. They remembered dismissing him. And now, they couldn't ignore the truth anymore. Even Karen remembered that meeting, the moment she pointed, the moment she declared the wall illegal. It replayed in her mind, but now it felt different. The confidence she had then was gone, replaced by regret. Despite everything, Mark stepped in to help. He guided rescue teams, pointing out safer paths through the floodwaters, using his vantage point to assist. He didn't hold grudges. He didn't turn people away, because this was never about proving people wrong, it was about protecting lives. As Karen looked back at her flooded home from the boat, the weight of everything hit her. The loss, the mistakes, the decisions she couldn't undo. For the first time, she saw the situation clearly, and it wasn't easy to accept. The storm slowly began to pass. Clouds started to break, letting light through for the first time in hours. The rain eased, and the water stopped rising. But what it left behind told a story no one would forget. Water began to recede, revealing the damage underneath. Mud-covered streets, destroyed homes, scattered debris everywhere. Residents returned to what was left of their homes. Some walked through silence, others broke down at the sight. Personal belongings were ruined, memories lost, everything changed. It wasn't just property, it was their lives. And just across the wall, everything was still intact. Dry grass, untouched structure.com. A stark contrast that made one thing painfully clear: it didn't have to be this way. The next HOA meeting felt completely different. The room was quieter, heavier. Fewer people spoke. No one argued. Karen stood up again, but this time her voice was softer. No anger, no authority behind it, just honesty. She acknowledged what happened, what went wrong. And for once, she listened. Mark sat calmly, hearing her out. He didn't interrupt, didn't challenge her. There was no need. The situation had already proven everything that needed to be said. One by one, others nodded in agreement. The resistance was gone. The denial was gone. What remained was understanding, and the cost that came with learning.